All right, we are live. Okay, thank you everyone for joining. Tonight we are joined by three very special guests, three of our elected officials. We have Jason Muldoon, who is a Hartsdale Fire Commissioner. We have Tanya Dragic and Chris Valin, who are Greenburgh Central School District Board of Education members. My name is Eric Zinger. I'm president of the Hartsdale Neighborhood Association, and we really appreciate everyone, whether you're watching this live or whether you're watching this after the fact. We really appreciate you taking an interest in local community efforts and local things. And hopefully you're watching this because you're interested in getting more involved with whatever aspect of your community you find interesting. And that's really why we're having this conversation tonight. We're trying to meet some of the people, who have been our elected officials. Chris is one of our newest elected officials, only sworn in a few months ago. Tanya and Jason have been doing this for a little bit longer, but we really want to give people a sense of what it's like to be an elected official, what it's like to really be involved on a volunteer basis for these kinds of programs, and hopefully encourage other people to look for ways that they can get involved and maybe even run for elected office one day. So we are looking to set up another one of these with some more local officials later on in October. So hopefully if this goes well and people enjoy it, we'll follow that up. And we've got commitments from a couple of our other officials, and we're just waiting for one or two more to finalize that. So we'll kick it off now. We'll just get started. I want to thank everyone for joining. I want to first start by introducing our three guests and ask them to talk a little bit about themselves. Chris, as the newest member of the elected officials group, we'll let you start off and go first. Why don't you just introduce yourself briefly, tell everyone a little bit about yourself real quick, and we can kick it off there.
Well, thank you for letting the rookie go first. I'm Chris Valen. I was elected to the Greenburgh School District Board of Education this past year, and I started my term as of July 1st. I've been volunteering at the schools for over 10 years, so this, I don't see it as I'm not a complete newbie. I feel like this is just a step up in my volunteerism with the district and helping out.
Thanks, Chris. And you live in Hartsdale, correct?
I do. Yes.
All three of the people tonight that we have are all Hartsdale residents. Obviously, if you want to be a fire commissioner, we'll let Jason go next. You must be a Hartsdale resident, but we know that Greenburgh Central School District includes a number of other areas. But these are all people who are our neighbors, our colleagues, our coworkers, I dare even say our friends. And we really appreciate them. They put a lot of time and effort into volunteering for these positions. None of these people are paid for their work, and we really appreciate them taking another night out tonight to share with us their experiences and be with us here. So Jason, why don't you go next?
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate the opportunity to talk. My name is Jason Muldoon. I'm a Hartsdale resident. I live in the Manor Woods district. I am a father of two young boys who love the fact that I'm involved in the fire district. Side benefit for all you folks out there. I was elected to one of the commissioner spots in December of 2018. So I've actually served 3 out of my 5-year rotation. Thoroughly enjoying it. Learned a hell of a lot about the fire district. Went in as a complete rookie, knowing very, very little, and 3 years later, I can definitely say I've learned more than I ever thought I would.
And Chris, your term is a 3-year term, correct? Yep. So Chris was just elected, and she's just starting out on her 3-year term. Tanya was elected to the Greenburgh Central School District Board of Education. I think, was it 2 years ago now, or was it just COVID time? So
I know it's hard to keep track, but it was in fact in 2019 that my term started, and it feels like a big chunk of it was stolen from me by COVID. So yes. Jason, did you want to add something else, or? Okay, well, so my name is Tanya Dragic, and I've been a resident of Hartsdale since 2009, but I did previously live here as a child as well for 7 years. And I have 3 children. 2 are in college and 1 just graduated this year, which is almost unbelievable. And I have my fingers in many pots. I'm a grant writer. I have all sorts of personal projects and interests as well, and then the board since 2019. So.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you for everything that you do as a volunteer elected official, and also thank you for joining us here tonight. So the first question that I want to ask, it's obviously a little bit of a leap to go from, volunteer community activist, just, to deciding to run for elected office. And, you each have to collect signatures and things like that. And that's a really big leap. So I want to ask you, what made you decide to run for elected office, and what factors went into that decision? And Jason, we won't pick on Chris too much and make her go first every time. So why don't you go first for this question here?
Thanks, Eric.
Tanya, you're going first next. So
my interest was piqued in the fire district for a couple of different reasons. Back in late 2000, sorry, I moved to Hartsdale in 2015. Previously, I'd been a renter in Carroll Gardens in Brooklyn, and kind of shortly after moving into my home, like everybody else who's a first-time home buyer, I had the shock of seeing my property tax bill, and it blew my mind. I was like, "What the hell are these numbers?" So that was certainly one of the elements that contributed to it. And in late 2017, through my work with the Hartsdale Neighbors Association, we organized a candidates night there was 2 open seats back then. I think Peter Woods was running unopposed, and Bob Iamonico and Mona Freitag were competing for the other seat. And it was really through meeting all of those 3 individuals that I got interested in the fire district. About a year later, I'd maintained contact with a couple of them, and about a year later, I heard that there was a seat open up. So talked to Bob Iamonico, attended a couple of those monthly fire district meetings, got to chat with the other commissioners, the chief, actually spoke to some of the folks on the firefighters union, and kind of that nailed it for me. Yeah, like this is definitely something I really want to get involved in. I'd love to understand more about how the district works, how our tax dollars are being used. And like I mentioned in my introduction, I really had no idea. I don't come from a public service background. I've never been involved with a union, either in a union or working with one. And so the ramp up period there was just very, very long to try and get my head around how these public service bodies actually operate. But again, learned a lot in these 3 years, and love every minute of it. I literally look forward to the monthly meetings and getting together with the other commissioners, the chief, and Sharon, our secretary treasurer.
Thanks. So Tanya, what I know, you were involved in HNA, and there was, school was certainly an active topic of conversation for us there. What caused you, to really decide that you were going to take the next step and run for an elected position?
So, Eric, when I looked at the general questions that you were going to ask us, I really thought very hard about this one, because I think it's a very relevant question, actually. And I would say that really the process started for me in 2016 with our national election. So without getting into politics, I just want to say that it was a very disconcerting time for me. And I felt that I really thought a lot about that election, not just the result, but overall. And I felt that part of the reason that perhaps we are where we are as a country is because a lot of us are really not involved in politics, local politics, state politics, national politics, and that I just really felt that as sort of an educated and privileged person, I almost had an obligation to become more involved. I have 3 children. I want them to grow up in a functional world. I want them to have a future. And I don't think that that's really possible if we all don't get involved on some level. So then, everything kind of stemmed from that. The fact that I joined the HNA, that's how I met you. That's where I really became educated on local issues. If I could have, I would have run for dictator of the world, but I just started small. And so, kind of the rest is really history. So, and I just want to add that, after the bond, because I was very vocal, I felt really also an obligation to really step up to the plate and sort of try to achieve those or help the district achieve those things which I felt were really important for it to move forward and then one day actually pass a bond. So that's kind of the gist of it.
Thanks, Tanya. So Chris, this should be an easy one for you because you just made, it's not too long ago that you made this decision. So what steps led to you decide to run for school board?
Well, it wasn't a quick or easy decision. I have to say that. And as I alluded to earlier, I've been involved for over 10 years. People will tell you I was often the only one at board meetings, the last one at board meetings. So I felt like I had an understanding of what was going on. And we all know that last year, a lot of eyes were on the board meetings, partly due to COVID, and everyone had the ability to tune in when they could. And since I've always felt in helping when you can, no matter the arena, and this was an area of interest, I thought that it was time to step up. I thought that I could provide a voice that wasn't being heard, provide a fresh perspective, and not feel like I was drowning since I was already kind of involved in various committees. That's the shortest version I can give.
This isn't a presidential debate, there's no
No,
requirement to fill and talk over your time, but and hopefully, we'll go through some of these questions that I have. We'll see if anyone from the audience, if you do have a question, there will definitely be time for that. And guys, if there's anything that you guys would like to speak more on, please feel free to interject. So the next thing that I kind of want to ask, and I'm curious about, is, and maybe this might be more geared towards Tanya and Jason. So Tanya, I'll let you go first, but what was something about being an elected official that you either didn't know or didn't expect or surprised you or was different than you expected? Something that you were like, oh, I thought it was going to be X and it turned out to be Y.
You want to go first or you want Jason?
Unless whoever's ready. So, yeah.
So I can tell you for sure that I think that I sort of knew these things intellectually, but I really didn't know them until I experienced them, which is that change is very slow. And it's really a slog. It's kind of a difficult process, and you sort of have to be tenacious and keep working. And at the end of the day, you as an individual make very small incremental changes, but what you hope for is that you sort of set the stage for the next person and the next person, and that you sort of set a positive direction. And so I think that was the biggest, I don't want to call, maybe I could call it a frustration, but overall that was the biggest lesson. It was kind of a lesson. It's a lesson in patience, actually. So, yeah.
What do you guys think about that? Do you agree? Is that Jason, is that your perspective on the fire board?
Yeah, Tanya makes a really great point. I've spent my entire professional career in financial services and in the legal industry. So coming into the public service sector, I had a very, I had been trained to operate in a corporate world. and I was kind of a bull in a china shop for those first like 3 to 6 months. And a really nice gentleman who unfortunately passed away earlier this year, Mr. Peter Woods, took me under his wing and educated me and helped me understand very, very close to what Tanya just described is you're not going to change the world in 1 or 2 monthly meetings. You know, you got to pick your battles. You got to figure out what your priorities are, and you got to make these small little incremental changes bit by bit by bit. And that's how you affect positive change within the organization.
Anything else that surprised you or was different from what you expected, Chris or Jason?
Well, I'm just going to say I kind of knew this, but I'm relearning this lesson every day. I'm used to, as a parent, going in and talking directly to someone about an issue I see or a solution I might have for a problem or an idea that you know they might want to consider. And I'm learning now that, to the point of things taking a little bit of time, that I need to follow a certain process to offer those and be more of a listener than I was before. So it's just a matter of learning that lesson every day on take a step back, go through the process and be effective that way. And just be patient.
Mhm.
So.
And you know, we can make this a little less formal. So anyone who wants to answer, please just go ahead. So, you know,
So I just
go
had
ahead,
another
please,
thing.
yeah.
So I actually had another thing I wanted to add, because actually this is another important question, Eric, that you're asking. I think that there is another thing that I discovered, which is that that personalities really matter, and that, you know, you can really derail a team with a single person, or you can bring it together by someone who's really, you know, extremely good at team building. And so I think that maybe this was an even bigger surprise for me than the other one, because I think the other one I kind of suspected and people warned me about it, but this one was really this was perhaps the biggest surprise, is really how much personalities matter, and people being able to work together and step back and, you know, retreat from their own egos and be part of a team. I think that was another really huge lesson in these past 2 years.
Well, the GCSD board is a board of 7 individuals, and Hartsdale Fire is a little bit smaller. It's 5. You know, I think that's certainly a good point you raised. You know, team dynamics, personality. Everyone has one vote, but you know, I'm sure Jason, in your experience when you first started out, you know, there were more experienced commissioners that you maybe relied on for sharing their experience and their expertise. And same thing when you, Tanya, when Chris, when you guys started out, you know, I'm sure the not just the professional experience comes into play there, but the personal dynamics as well.
Yes.
If you don't mind, you know, in the fire district, we've had a couple of meetings over the last few weeks now, because we're right in the middle of budget season, and we disagree, you know, across the commissioners, and I think it's healthy for people to disagree on things. You know, we have 4 active commissioners. You know, unfortunately, when Peter passed away, we haven't filled his seat. But the 4 commissioners who remain come from varying backgrounds, varying experiences. Some of us have no experience in the fire service, and you know, we get into our discussions and we disagree on things. But I feel, you know, to Tanya's point, it's all about an individual's ability to work with other people and come to that compromise and arrive at a solution that works for everybody. You know, I can think of very recently, the other night, we were having a pretty animated discussion about the fire district in terms of the budget. You know, I was coming up with some ideas. Other commissioners didn't like them for obvious reasons. And, you know, we came to a mutual agreement on where we as a board stood. And that was a very healthy conversation, very healthy discussion. And I do appreciate that. I appreciate the commissioners, all of the commissioners, the experience that they bring, and the expertise that they bring. And I think it's important to listen to other people's opinions. Chris mentioned it. As a commissioner, you're doing more listening, or as a board member, you're doing more listening than you are talking. And that is very important.
Let me ask you, Jason, though, how do you balance that where healthy debate and good constructive, back and forth is important and helpful, but, at times it's also important, to present a united front or things like that. How do you balance the amount of discussion that you guys have or debate that you guys have versus, I think using executive session or things like that? How do you balance the amount of, something is maybe not black and white, not 100% each way. People have different opinions. How do you balance kind of having that healthy discussion and getting public input on that discussion, but also kind of making sure that the right decisions are made?
Sure. Well, respect. Respect for the fellow commissioners, fellow board members. You got to listen to their opinions. You have to. I have to come out of my comfort zone and out of my corporate mentality, understand where they're coming from, understand that the decisions that we make as a board affect the public in Hartsdale, affect the services that they're provided, and to a life and death degree. If we decide that we're going to make cuts on to the budget or to the services, if it changes the response time of the fire department by 30 seconds or by a minute, that could be a minute that somebody unfortunately doesn't make it. So we have to be really attentive to that. You mentioned about getting public input, and to go back to one of your previous questions, one of the frustrations about being on the fire district board is the lack of public input. We do not get people at our meetings. We do not get people at our public comment sessions. You've been there, and there are meetings where you are the only person attending. And it's really frustrating because I know the comments that are out there on social media. I know what people say out on the street. And sure, your fire taxes, for me, my fire taxes are almost $4,000 a year. If people have things to say and want to participate and want to find out more, they should come to the meetings. They should give their input and let the commissioners hear from them. That's something that I think is missing right now. I would love to see that change over the remaining 2 years of my term, certainly.
Yeah, there's been times, Chris, I want you to go next. There's been times where I've gone even to the annual budget hearing, and you can count on one hand the number of people there, and most of them are involved in the fire department in some way or another. Chris, why don't you? Sounds like you have something to add there.
Well, I was just going to say, I agree. Healthy debate is important. And I think, at least for the school board, I really value the fact that we have a diversity of backgrounds and geographic areas on the board. So we have as many different perspectives as possible. As far as public participation, I really want to encourage people to attend the committee meetings, because that's where you're really having dialogue and having that back and forth and hammering out different suggestions. The board meetings themselves really isn't the forum for that two-way conversation and to really kind of iron out details. So I really encourage the public to give that input, that productive input at the committee level. While that information's on the website.
I'm going to ask you to talk about the committees that are available next. If anyone who's watching this is interested in getting more involved on the GCSD level, what are some of those committees that they could get involved with?
I just think there's a bit of a misconception out there that people think that showing up to the board meetings is where we're going to solve problems. The board meetings is where the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, and the conversation and the problem solving happens at a different time, a different moment. I don't know if Tanya wants to add anything to that, but that's if there's one takeaway from tonight, the dialogue is in committees, in conversations on the street, in emails to the whole board. As far as I know, I'm only 2 months old. So
no, I think that's a great point, because you see that in the town a lot. You see that in the school district a lot. Before there's a vote there's a lot of conversation and there's a lot of committee meetings and subcommittee meetings and things like that. And the time to get involved isn't the night of the vote or the night of that, it's beforehand. So I do want to hear maybe Tanya or Chris, if you could tell us about some of the GCSD committees that are available, if people want to maybe take that next step towards getting involved.
So all of our committees are listed on the website. I'm not sure I can rattle all of them off, but we have, I think the ones that are probably of the greatest interest are the finance and facilities, and then the education and wellness. And then we have a community engagement committee, which actually there was some discussion about between the board members who are sitting on that committee today about perhaps sort of shifting the focus of that committee a little bit more to what its name says, which is community engagement, which I think really is one of the probably one of the areas where we have been the weakest. Greenburgh or unincorporated Greenburgh has almost 10,000 households, and I would say that maybe not even a full 1,000 are actually using our schools, but the others are still paying into this district. They're paying taxes. And I think it's really very important for us as a board to go out there and really start talking more about our district and what we are trying to accomplish, and what the the issues that we're having, the ways that we're trying to solve them, how the community could help and support the district. I think this is really something that we have done a very poor job of, and that I'm hoping we'll get better with this new board over the next year, 2, 3, whatever. That we really get the entire community to sort of buy into this idea that we can actually together really build a great school district, right? And we can do a good job of educating the kids despite, all the challenges that we face, which, every district has challenges. This is the challenges are not unique to Greenburgh. So yes, I would agree with Chris that it's really important to be involved in the committees, just as I think it's important that for those board members who serve on those committees to really, I think, more forcefully bring back the message to the entire board and the superintendent about what they actually heard in those committee meetings.
Yeah, so for anyone who's interested in maybe getting more involved with the school district, there's at least 2 committees that are made up of members of the public. There's the Community Engagement and Communications Committee, which is designed to serve as the liaison between the Board of Education and all members of the community. And then there's also the Finance and Facilities Committee. Sorry, not community. So if you're interested in getting involved with either of those, I would encourage people to do so. But that's really where a lot of the discussion and input from the community is applied and can go up the chain with the Board of Education. So one thing I want to talk about is, time commitments and, the things that you guys have to sacrifice. And I want to just, again, I'm not going to say it. I'm going to say it a lot. I'm going to say it many times. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for all the efforts that you guys put in. Guys, all 3 of these members are volunteers. They are not paid or compensated for their time. They have to deal with a lot of, they're all parents in the community. They all have jobs. People are busy and they take the time out of their day to volunteer on these efforts. So can you guys talk to me a little bit about how you balance the requirements of being an elected official and what advice you would give to people who are saying, you know what, I think I want to take the next step. I want to get more involved. Maybe it's not running for elected office yet, but I want to take the next step. What should I expect? What should I know, in terms of, the responsibility that it involves? Whoever would like to, go first, please.
Well, I'll go, as the new person on the board, I think right now I'm probably putting in more time just in learning everything, you know, what's the saying, drinking through a fire hose is what it feels like right now. This past Saturday, I spent 6 to 7 hours in one of our 2 mandated trainings. And then I have another mandated training which I'm doing online, but I'm only a third of the way through and I've already spent, I think, 5 hours doing that. But right now I think I'm going up a steep hill. So I'm hoping that once I get to that plateau, I'll be able to better manage the time I'm spending on this. From before I made the decision to run, I did reach out to a number of people just to get a feeling for what the time commitment was. Because I was already going to multiple committee meetings and all the board meetings, I already knew how much meeting time was involved, but I didn't know about the time spent on preparation for those meetings. So I would say that right now as a new person, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like I'm spending more time doing that because I'm learning the language at the same time while I'm preparing for meetings. I'll say I spend anywhere from 5 to 10 hours a week just reading through documents. And again, I'm reading all the details now. Once I understand the details and the processes, I expect that time commitment to lessen. So that's what a new person is doing right now. And as far as someone who just wants to dip their toe in the waters, I would say, I think it's helpful if a new person were to show up at any committee meeting, any PTA meeting, any volunteer activity you want to do, even if it's once a month, once a quarter, twice a year, whether it's volunteering in your child's, well, we can't be in the classrooms, but showing up at their sports event or listening to a meeting and providing some feedback through your PTA. It can be as little or as much as you want. I think you just need to dip your toe in and see what's comfortable for you and where you and your family are at this time. And that will change as you grow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an elected official, but I know that, I certainly found myself, first trying to like dabble and get more involved and learn about everything. And I found myself when I came home, being drawn more to town issues and things like that. And so I just started, dip my toe in. I started going to a town board meeting. I went to a couple, then I spoke at one, then I started, and it doesn't have to be the kind of thing that you turn on or off. It's the kind of thing that you can do as time allows, and you can build into it and get more comfortable and, get more involved and take more of an active role over time, maybe starting off with a little bit of a passive role at first too. So I think that's a great point that you made, Chris.
If you don't mind, Eric, from a fire commissioner perspective, we meet once a month, our typical monthly meetings, the second Tuesday of every month, runs from 7:30 till probably 10 o'clock most months. Some months it can go longer depending on the time of year, depending obviously on what we have on the agenda and any special items in executive session. But there's also some additional kind of ebbs and flows in the commitment. To Chris's point, there's a bunch of reading, some research generally you have to do for various topics. In 2019, we had a bunch of firefighters retire. We went through a hiring spree where we filled a lot of our open positions. We did some promotions of captains and deputies. We ended up replacing our chief. Chief Rush retired. We promoted Chief Maceda from within. So those are all additional nights. You're doing interviews. The board is having discussions about the candidates. Budget season is obviously busy. We generally have a couple of budget working sessions where the commissioners get together and we're going through line by line what the budget is for the year, prioritizing, looking at the financials, looking at what can we do, and even now, in addition, the commissioners are going through a labor contract negotiation with the firefighters union. Which takes additional evenings out of my day. So I couldn't do this if I didn't have the support of a wonderful partner who takes our 2 kids and she manages feeding and dinner and bath and bedtime. So having the support of somebody outside to free up that time is important. But generally speaking, from a fire commissioner perspective, it's a couple of nights a month. I think if somebody's interested in getting involved, start with coming to the meetings once a month, pick up the agenda off the website, show up to the meeting, hear what the board is saying, ask questions, learn how the board operates, learn what the priorities are for the district, talk to firefighters, see what their concerns are. They're a very important part of our dynamic too, because they're the folks on the ground who are providing this service, and it's important that we take into account their safety and their ability to do their job. But yeah, I think for somebody who's interested in getting involved, definitely start with the meetings once a month. Not a big time commitment.
And Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're not just a Hartsdale Fire Commissioner. You are also on the Hartsdale Contextual Review Committee, correct?
I am, yes, but
for people who don't know what that is, maybe do you want me to give a background? Maybe since you're on the committee, you could give everyone a little, because there are open positions on that committee, correct?
Yeah, there are. I mean, I don't want to take away from our purpose here tonight, but certainly the Hartsdale Contextual Review.
The purpose here tonight is to get people involved and thinking about getting involved. So, anything that people want to do, if this is something they find interesting, maybe if even one person hears it, that's a good thing. So tell us a little bit about it.
The Hartsdale Contextual Review Committee is a group of taxpayers, homeowners, residents within the Hartsdale hamlet. And our focus is on preserving the aesthetics of the Hartsdale downtown area. So when a business wants to, is doing remodeling, wants to change their signage, is going to the zoning board, is going through the town to do some work, anything that has to do with the aesthetics of their property goes to the Hartsdale Contextual Review Committee. We have a set of guidelines. We look at, how is their signage, and we provide input. Our feedback, our input is non-binding to the town board, but the town board takes our feedback and that kind of goes into the whole decision-making process. So very interesting. Very interesting.
It is interesting. This is specific to the downtown Hartsdale train station area. It's zoned specifically for, zoned as its own zoning district, and the contextual committee within the town zoning guidelines has certain responsibilities for, as Jason said, maintaining that aesthetic.
And occasionally you get some interesting things come up, about a month or so ago, we had the whole Hartsdale tobacco store came up on our agenda, and that led to some pretty healthy debate. But to be honest, the proprietor was very genuine and listened to the feedback and took that on board. So that was a win for all of us, I think.
Tanya, you've been on the school board, for over 2 years now, and obviously you guys have a lot of meetings and a lot of committee meetings. How do you balance all of that, and what would you say for someone who's looking to get involved, and any tips that you would have about maybe prioritizing certain committees or certain things that you're interested in, and anything based on your experience that you think people would find helpful?
So I think I just really want to reiterate the point that Chris made, because I think it's really seminal that people should get involved, even if it's going to a meeting just once or twice a year, and somebody may be passionate enough to go more and become interested and do more and more. But I think every little bit helps, every little bit of involvement from the community in community affairs, whether it's the school board or the fire district or the town affairs, whatever it is, it's, I think everyone needs to give a little bit. It is, to be on the board is an enormous time commitment. It just is. And it goes beyond, the numerous meetings that we have. I mean, I was actually counting today. It's for me now as VP, it's really at least 10 meetings a month. And sometimes it's even more. And you really have to sort of be, prepared for each of these meetings and then think on your feet. And so I would say that inevitably, I think as Jason was saying about his partner, you're inevitably going to end up taking time away, I think, from family, because you got to do your job and you got to do whatever your house requires. So that it does really eat. I have found that it does eat into personal time. And that's just the reality of it. And you just sort of have to accept that. It's it
Certainly
it
part
is
of it.
true. Yeah,
So-
it's part of it.
I'll point out now, obviously, if you are interested in getting involved, one of the best ways that you can do that is to get involved with the Hartsdale Neighbors Association. You
There
know,
you go.
I first got involved with the Hartsdale Neighbors Association way back when in 2017, when I went to a meeting where Jason was there. He was, one of the founding members of the group, and him and a couple other people who are still very much involved in on our executive committee, we're talking about the potential Edgemont incorporation. And that was my first kind of foray into HNA. And the thing that I'll say about getting involved with us is, if you're interested, is that, what you want to do and what you want to advance and what you're interested in is what, we focus on, because, it's a volunteer driven group. I point to things that, like Odell House, which something frankly is a great thing that we support, and I'm so proud of all the efforts that Susan Seal has done and the recent Colonial Day that she put on. But to be perfectly frank, it's not necessarily the thing that I'm most interested in, but it's a big part of some of the stuff that we talk about, because a lot of the people who are involved in HNA, that's what they care about and that's what they're interested in. So whether it's schools and our school committee, whether it's traffic and safety, and we have a traffic and safety committee that works directly with the town on some of the stuff that they've been putting together. There was a meeting on Monday. We talked about the meeting before the meeting earlier. There was a meeting on Monday where they presented a lot of stuff about traffic and safety. There was a lot of discussion that led up to that, and committee meetings and public input and the opportunity to contribute. And, people from HNA who have been involved and have been following this along, are able to share their insight and shape policy and shape consideration and shape priorities. So if you're interested in getting more involved on, Tanya started out with us. She's on, the Board of Ed. Jason is the Hartsdale Fire Commissioner. We've had people be on the water and zoning. I got involved with Parks and Rec. It's a great stepping stone to talk to other people who are involved in the community and find out, hey, I'm interested in this. What could be a good opportunity for me? Because it's really hard sometimes to know what those things are and get involved. So if you are watching this live or you are watching this on delay and you don't get our emails, you can sign up on our website, which is hartsdaleneighbors.org, or you can email us at info@hartsdaleneighbors.org, and we will certainly be happy to add you. And if you're interested in getting involved, either just attending some of our smaller meetings that we have, or you have something that you want to work on and see if the HNA can work with you, we certainly would love to hear from you. We definitely need more volunteers. We can always have more volunteers. And if there's anything that you'd like to discuss or work on, we are happy to partner with you and move that forward. So I did throw out a Slack question, not Slack, I'm still in work mode, sorry. A question in the chat to Zoom. If anyone has a question that they would like to ask, if you could use the Zoom feature to raise your hand, certainly would be interested in hearing from you guys. While we give people a chance to work up the courage, let's talk about some of the things that are coming up. Not necessarily right now, but things that people should be aware of. So Jason, the fire district election is usually the first week of December. I don't believe we have a date for this year yet, do we? Or is that something we can just tell people to keep an eye out for in December?
It's either going to be the December 7th or 14th. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's either the first or second Tuesday of December. It's fast approaching. We actually have 2 seats up this year. One of our commissioners, I understand, is planning to run again. The other seat is open. That is the seat that was vacated when our brother Peter Woods passed away. So we're looking for members of the community to step up and get involved. And if somebody's been reluctant or has kind of maybe thought about it, but not really sure, waiting for an opportunity, come to the October meeting, meet the commissioners, have a chat with us. And we'd certainly love to entertain, any guests and anyone who's interested in getting involved.
So the October meeting is it's the first Tuesday or the second?
Second Tuesday of October.
October 12th at 7 p.m. and it's
7:30.
on, it's still virtual, right?
No, 7:30, 7:30 p.m. and it's at Station 2, which is the fire station along West Hartsdale Avenue.
Okay, so if you have any questions, whether it's about the election, whether it's about the district, the next meeting is October 12th. And then Tanya and Chris, there is also going to be a special election in December for the school district. I think it's December 14th. So that's a Tuesday as well. Jason, I don't know if you guys have finalized yet. I don't know if it makes sense to have them on the same day or not have them on the same day, but can you guys talk to us and maybe just give us a little bit of insight into what that election is going to be about and have give people a chance to put that on their calendar? Or it's not an election, it's a vote though, right?
Chris, would you like me to take that, or do you want to take that one? Okay, all right. So this particular election is to create a capital reserve, which our district currently doesn't have. And you can think of it as a sort of a savings account for future capital projects, improvement to facilities, improvement to buildings, major projects. So this vote is not about the mansion per se. It's really about creating this capital reserve, which we need for our capital projects. And the referendum is also going to ask voters to approve, I think it's 15, let me just check my notes here. Oh, so no more than 15 million total can be placed into the capital reserve, and that it will be open for 10 years. So this is really this is something that the district really needs, because it's monies that again, it's like a savings account. We put it aside when we have to do a major project. If we go to bond, monies from this capital reserve can be used to supplement the bond. So it is an important vote, and it is on December 14th. And again, it's only for the creation of this particular reserve.
So it's just I think this is one question. Chris, go ahead.
So it's basically creating the bank account, the reserve fund, but not funding it. We're not asking for any money. It's going to have a $0 balance. It's just creating the account.
So for everyone who might be asking, if you were to vote yes for this, that would not raise your taxes for anyone.
Not at all. No.
I think that's important to communicate, because people might think, oh, we're authorizing borrowing of 15 million. This is just authorizing the account to be created to potentially be used for future projects.
That's right.
Okay. Anyone in the audience with a question? Otherwise, I have one more that I could ask. But if anyone who's here does have a question, now would be the chance. So hearing none, maybe you guys, I don't know if anyone has anything specific they could talk about, but maybe you could talk about the challenges for, Jason, you touched on it a little bit earlier, challenges for affecting change and getting a shared vision. GCSD, you have 7 members on the school board. Jason, there's 5 on the Hartsdale Fire. How do you, work through differences of opinion, differences of perspective to get a shared vision and, advance and make things better? Is that something, I hope I'm phrasing it correctly. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Well, I guess the only thing I'd like to say to that, for letting others go forth, is I think identifying our common values first is important to learning to work together and getting that shared vision, because if we haven't identified what we have in common and the points where we agree, we won't be able to easily come together on the points where we don't. So I just want to say that it's that discussion about what we value that has to be the basis for everything else. As far as putting it into practice, I'm still new.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. You know, everyone on this call, or most people on this call are, you know, we all live in the same community. We might not all live in the Hartsdale Fire District. You know, we might not all live in, you know, there's so many different special districts here, but there isn't a lot of overlap. And then a lot of the people that are, you know, involved in one aspect, or like Jason is, he's involved in another, and I'm involved in HNA, and I'm also involved in Parks and Rec. And, you know, you start to see and meet the people in your community who are trying to make things better and are volunteering their time and effort. And I have to say, you know, the more you talk to them and the more you're around them, and it's inspiring. And it makes, you know, for me, I can speak for myself personally, it makes me want to volunteer and do more when I talk to Jason about the fire district, or I ask him a question and he tells me about all the things that are going on, or I call Tanya and I say, you know, what's coming down the pipe for the school district and things like that. Talking to, you know, volunteers like the three of you, and I'll say it again, thank you so much for volunteering your time. You know, it can be really inspiring. So I would encourage anyone who's thinking about, you know what, I would like to get more involved in my local community. You know, there's no better time than right now. So
Can I chime in on your question for a minute? So, you know, I think back to my first couple of meetings after I joined the board, and, you know, I really wasn't party to a shared vision for the fire district. I had my own. I thought I knew what was best. I thought I knew how to make things better. And, you know, I slowly learned that, yeah, that's not the case. I was being an idiot, and, you know, I had to listen to other people, and I had to take their perspectives on. You know, there on our board, we have individuals who have fire background. We have individuals who come from a police background, so they have that public service background. They know what it's like to be on the front line helping people. You know, I came with the corporate background, which I think was a really good addition to the board, because it brings some of the elements of, I can bring some of the elements of the corporate world, hopefully maybe streamline, make things a little bit more efficient, look for opportunities that in the public service may not be there. But over time, you know, the group, we have 4 really strong personalities who like working with each other, even though we do have differences of opinions and different perspectives. But we have merged on a shared vision over the course of my 3 years there. And really what it centers around is the level of service that we're providing to the community. You know, you look around Hartsdale, you look at the age profile, the demographics of the residents, you look at the buildings, the number of apartment buildings, the size of those apartment buildings, and you think about, what does it take for a fire service to get in there and help someone when there's an emergency? And how do you make sure that they can do that job effectively, quickly, and get the people out and get them the help that they need? And so, you know, I think, like, you go back to those first couple of meetings, and I wanted to change everything, and I wanted to do X, Y, and Z. And after a while, I started to realize the error of my ways and really dial it back and start listening to people. And now we have that shared vision of service comes first, but we also still have to operate within the bounds of what the taxpayers are willing to give us. And so there's a real battle that happens every budget year, and making sure that, you know, we're maintaining that high quality service to the taxpayers without, you know, continually making them go back into their wallets and fund us at higher and higher levels every year.
Thanks, Jason. Okay, Tanya, Chris, Jason, any last thoughts? Anything else that we maybe didn't touch on, or that you wanted to share across? Anything that's coming down the pipeline, or, you know, something that you wanted to share about being on a elected official on a board like this?
Yeah, so I just want to add, I listened to Chris and Jason talk about this shared vision, and I do agree that it's really important. I have found that really the bottleneck is really the implementation piece. it's really not so difficult, especially when you're talking about education, to have a shared vision about, what you want really for your students. And but the hard part is really always pushing for that vision to be implemented, because I find that every system, every organization has its sort of, I almost want to call it internal inertia and its own internal way of functioning or malfunctioning, and to really push it to change. And so we're going back to sort of the beginning of the discussion, to push it to change and to work more effectively is really the hard part, actually. So.
Good point. I think, yeah. I think that's an especially good point with the school district because, I think everyone wants to support the school district and have a school district that we can be proud of. And then there's just different ways of getting to that same final end goal. So, I think, I can't remember if it was Chris or Jason who said, there's more that brings us, more that we have in common necessarily than differentiates us. And I think that's an excellent point. So, I want to thank everyone for joining, especially Chris, Jason, and Tanya. Thank you so much for taking an hour out of your time. I know you guys do so much for the community, and we really appreciate you guys giving and sharing your perspective. We will be hoping to do another one of these at the end of October with some of our county, state, and town officials who are not volunteers, but are still putting in the hours to trying to help and represent us on those various committees. So if you have any questions about anything that was discussed tonight, if you want to get in touch with any of the people for a question, you can email info@hartsdaleneighbors.org. Be happy to connect you. If you're interested in getting more involved in your community, there is no better way than getting involved with HNA, and we would love to hear from you. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight, and have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting us, Eric. It was a
Tanya.
pleasure.
Thank you for attending.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
Take care.